apostate slave, whom Karak made his brides, to prevent his wife. Then, 7 days later, he broke the goddess, ascending in her blood. From that moment on, the ancient god has borne the name Kanithagor, meaning the Scarlet King. On her deathbed, San gave birth to 7 daughters, whom Karak made his brides, to prevent them as seals. Each one gave birth to monsters called Leviathans, thus initiating the 7 orders of abomination within the king's army.
The potter told his prentice to prepare him 7 jars. 6 he made, with grace and skill. The last his hands did mar.
The first bride, Ativik, was the king's favorite, and received the seal of dominion. Her children came to be the wisest and most zealous weapons in the monarch's war. The second, Agor, was bestowed the seal of despair, and gave birth to a myriad of monsters, which led their master to victory. Adestat despised the other sisters, and her children bore the stamp of devastation. Azi, the fourth bride, took on the form of a terrible beast under the banner of wrath. She gave birth to monsters bearing impenetrable armor and the ability to self-heal. The children of the fifth bride, Anut, by virtue of the seal of need, were particularly gifted in magic. The Crimson Monarch, now fearing a revolt, crippled them all. Atelif, the sixth bride, preferred to remain gifted in magic. The Crimson Monarch, now fearing a revolt, crippled them all. Atelif, the sixth bride, preferred to remain in solitude, and so secrecy did become her seal.
Ich habe another
The
join.
beings which she brought into the world could change their appearance, render themselves invisible, and even open portals to other worlds, thus paving the way for a bloody army.
The king is in his courting clothes. The brides are in their beds. The unborn princess wait in sleep to raise their eager heads. The hens are in the hen house.
The second, Agor, was bestowed the seal of despair, and gave birth to a myriad of monsters, which led their master to victory. Adestat despised the other sisters, and her children bore the stamp of devastation. Azi, the fourth bride, took on the form of a terrible beast under the banner of wrath. She gave birth to monsters bearing impenetrable armor and the ability to self-heal. The children of the fifth bride, Anut, by virtue of the seal of need, were particularly gifted in magic. The Crimson Monarch, now fearing a revolt, crippled them all. Atelif, the sixth bride, preferred to remain in solitude, and so secrecy did become her seal. The beings which she brought into the world could change their appearance, render themselves invisible, and even open portals to other worlds, thus paving the way for a bloody army.
The king is in his courting clothes. The brides are in their beds. The unborn princess wait in sleep to raise their eager heads. The hens are in the hen house, and 7 eggs did lay, till the fox crept in by dark of night and stole the eggs away.
Once upon a time, the Leviathans nearly destroyed the Tree of Knowledge. To stop them, the few opponents of the Crimson Monarch brought on a great flood. One of the exhausted Leviathans was banished to the world of mortals to wander for eternity. He's called Atanti Kelpanu, meaning the indestructible reptile. One must agree, of course, that SCP-682 matches the description of the children of Azeb perfectly. Like Karak himself once was, the seventh daughter of San, named Ahabat, was the weakest among all the brides. Moreover, her spirit had not been completely shattered by the king. She raised up heroes in an effort to end his reign, but all were defeated. With the backstory of the Scarlet King now clear, let us return to the SCP Foundation. One day, 7 brides fell into its custody. 7 girls were rescued during a police raid conducted on a warehouse belonging to a cult known as the Children of the Scarlet King.
6 were broken by their bindings. 6 no more shall sing. Comes the 7th, full and winding, and the bells will ring. ring.
A day later, one of the captured girls begins having contractions. She gives birth to a strange creature that takes the lives of many innocent civilians. The girls were subsequently taken away by the Foundation and assigned the following numbers: SCP-231-1 to SCP-231-7. As it turns out, these were to be vessels for brides of Karak from another dimension.
When the first had given birth, and all the birds did sing, her screaming cries did shake the skies, as she called out for her king. By Doctor's blade, the second bade a life into the world. Untimely hewn, neath the silent moon, the king's red flag unfurled.
The first girl died while giving birth to an anomalous entity.
The
It's known
Scarlet
that
King
this
is
brought about a
disgusting.
catastrophic event which affected many. A similar fate befell the second bride as well. Foundation scientists attempted to remove her fetus, but were unsuccessful.
His bride, the third, remained unheard, her cries for help ignored. She stopped her life with a surgeon's knife and gave it to our Lord. The fourth prepares a dagger and places it at her heart. The perfect cure cannot make pure what the king has said.
Let's pause the bit, I guess. Let's head inside, yo. Good night, sir. Good night, my new scientist. My girlfriend died from that nuke, and my other girlfriend, a scientist, that scientist. So I'm on my own now. My wife died, and yeah. 7 in the fucking morning, dog. Let's go take a shower. There we are. Press play, dog.
Apart, the fifth one's crown was bearing down upon the fox's set. The dead was sundered with mighty thunder, and apocalypse beget.
SCP-231-3 died, unable to withstand the brutal procedure called 110 Montauk. Efforts were made to save the fourth bride with the help of SCP-500, strange pills that cure deadly diseases and heal wounds, but this was to no avail, and the girl passed away. Her fifth sister gave birth and destroyed the entirety of Site-231 Aleph.
On the sixth one's day, the walls gave way, and the oceans turned to ash. Her birth gave her as the earth shook underneath the king's fell lash. The seventh bride will break the tides, the moon no more will shine. There comes a day, not far away, she'll birth the death of time.
The loss of the sixth bride troubled one of the Foundation agents. He felt pity for the two remaining girls and tried to save them, utilizing an anomalous object. He was, however, interrupted by the guards, and both the agent and SCP-231-6 were killed during a crossfire. Only the seventh bride survived and has a special role in the history of the Scarlet King. Her child's birth was successfully prevented by means of the 110 Montauk procedure. This is perhaps one of the most controversial points in the Foundation's history. It was the brainchild of Dr. Robert Montauk, who's the head of projects for SCP-1, SCP-231, and SCP-2317. He studied the Scarlet King for over 20 years. According to rumors, the procedure he invented consists of horrendously abusing the girl with violence and torture. And at first, it seems that's exactly what it was. Then, the leader of the Children of the Scarlet King group, Depeche Spivak, fell into the hands of the Foundation. His group attempted to summon their god into our world, but were thwarted by the Foundation in conjunction with the GOC. It's known that the cult was previously a part of the Serpent's Hand, but then the apostates later split off from them, becoming their own independent group.
The Doctor never tells his god which one he really seeks. Instead, he hides himself away, and quietly he weeps. Their god's own voice, he makes the choice, declaring with their word, in fear of pain, let her remain, lest she be like the third.
Over the course of a few interviews, Depeche would never answer Montauk's questions directly, but instead nudged the scientist in the direction needed to find the necessary information, and also shared some interesting thoughts and insight. As it so happens, when Montauk began to actively study the Children of the Scarlet King and monitor their activities, the Doctor's brother suddenly disappeared. Overcome by rage and hatred, the scientist created that terrible procedure. When the former head of the cult brought this up, Montauk became suspicious. Following some extensive digging into the records of the Crimson Monarch, the researcher realized that he had been deceived. Montauk was prompted to create the ritual by the Children of the Scarlet King themselves, which was to their god's advantage. The scientist then tried to have the procedure cancelled, but the Overseer Council took no such risk.
The Doctor's gun ended his run as he put it to his ear, as she was defiled. The pitied child, he gave it to his fear. Her memory a fickle thing, the strongest shall endure. When her weeping starts to waver, their drugs make her mind pure.
Then, overwhelmed by stress, Montauk went where no one comes back from. After much disagreement, the procedure set for the seventh bride was eventually called off. As a result, she gave birth to SCP-999. It's assumed that he's the hero who's destined to defeat the Scarlet King. During an experiment with the invincible reptile, the tickling monster made the creature happy for a while. After all, SCP-999 was still a child at the time and did not wield full strength. There exists yet another legend about the death of Karak, which is connected to the 7 King Spears. When they're close by, they open up a portal to another dimension. The more weapons that are collected, the larger the gap becomes. And so all 7 points must release the Crimson Monarch. The portal leads to Alagata, the kingdom of the Scarlet King. And so the cult was able to summon the 7 brides into our world. The spears are recalled in the prophetic text, according to which they will defeat Karak, Harker, Fawn, Set, Exile, Empress, Ahabat, and Isabel will all be thrust into the king's body. But that's another story, since it marks the end of the world. Nevertheless, the Foundation is of the belief that the very existence of SCP-1 is but a suspended scenario for the end of the Tashkent-class world. If the Scarlet King does enter into our dimension, then everything will cease to exist. And so we now come to the main 2 questions.
Scarlet King ain't nothing to me. Scarlet King is weak compared to me though.